If you think you've never been manipulated, that might be exactly why you were such an easy mark. The most controllable man isn't the openly clueless guy. It's the guy who thinks he's far too smart to fall for it. Cute, right? Vanity wearing a tailored suit of intelligence. Manipulation rarely kicks the front door down screaming. It slips in through the cracks, through a perfectly placed guilt trip, a well-timed silence, the subtle jab that pokes your ego and makes you react like you've just been drafted into a war. And when you react without realizing it, my friend, the game is already afoot. Worse, you walked in thinking you were calling the shots. Picture the scene. A grounded guy, dialed-in routine, level-headed, solid frame, until someone shows up and starts pulling the right strings. At first, it's subtle. He replies a bit faster. Then he over-explains. Then he starts walking on eggshells so he doesn't upset her. Then he abandons his own purpose just to stay on her radar. Next thing he knows, he's reading into silences, looking for signs, trying to decipher a shift in her tone, doing emotional gymnastics just to keep his access. Nobody put him in chains. Nobody held a gun to his head. They just pushed the right buttons. And he, with all his hard-to-get posturing, became totally predictable. A tragic masterpiece. This video isn't about learning how to manipulate. That's a game for small, insecure people who are too lazy to build actual value. We're talking about something else here. How to stop being controllable. The secret of men who are never manipulated isn't fake stoicism, theatrical arrogance, or that tired act of pretending you feel nothing because you're terrified of looking human. The secret is internal structure. It's knowing exactly where your weak spots are before someone else finds them and uses them against you. It's realizing that you can only be manipulated if you're easy to move, by your ego, by neediness, by fear, by a thirst for validation. And this is where most guys lose the plot because they want to learn tactics without facing their own mental loops. They want to win the game without admitting they react the exact same way every single time. So today, the talk is straightforward and uncomfortable. If I know how you react, I know how to steer you. And step one to breaking out of this is facing a dry, brutal truth. You aren't manipulated because the other person is an evil genius. More often than not, you're manipulated because you are predictable. Let's strip away the illusion right now. Manipulation isn't black magic. It's not some secret Jedi mind trick. It's a pattern, repetition, basic behavioral reading. And your behavior, most of the time, is as predictable as a cheap watch. You think you're being spontaneous. You aren't. You're reacting the way you've always reacted. Someone gives you attention, you spill your guts. Someone pulls away, you chase. Someone provokes you, you bite. Someone leaves you unread, you scramble to fix it. That's not a personality, that's a script. Now look at this objectively. If someone watches this loop for long enough, it's game over. They don't need to be a master manipulator. They just need to pay attention. They just need to notice that your neediness flares up when there's silence, that your ego gets triggered by a challenge, that your insecurity bleeds out when there's distance. Boom! They've got the blueprint. And here comes the humiliating part that almost no one admits. You aren't being led by the nose because the other person is brilliant. You're being led because you respond the exact same way every time. Always. Without fail, without variation, without taking a breath. It's like pushing a button and waiting for the beep. And the beep always comes. But here's the catch. The predictable man always thinks he's in the driver's seat. He thinks he's choosing, deciding, leading the situation. He isn't. He's just running his own emotional software on autopilot. An elegant knee-jerk reaction, well articulated, but with zero autonomy. And that's why manipulation works like a charm, because it doesn't have to force you. It just has to trigger you. If I know how you react, I know where to poke. If I know where to poke, I know how to move you. Simple, raw, functional. And this is where most guys choke. Because to get out of this matrix, you have to admit that the problem isn't the game, it's your programming. And that pattern stems from a specific place. A place you actively avoid looking at. You want to stop getting played? Stop looking outward and start looking inward, because no one controls you without weaponizing something that was already there. It always was. Manipulation doesn't create the flaw. It exploits it. Look at it closely. It's not the other person tearing you down. It's what they trigger inside you. If you're starving for validation, any scrap of praise reels you in. If you're terrified of losing, any distance throws you off balance. If your ego is fragile, any jab makes you snap. If you're emotionally dependent, any absence turns into desperation disguised as caring. That's not bad luck. That's a pattern. And here comes the part that stings your pride. You think you're dealing with complicated people, but really, you're just dealing with your own weaknesses being pressed. They just hit the button. The wiring was already fully installed. It's almost comical. A guy spends years trying to decode other people's behavior, but never sits down for 5 minutes to map out his own mind. Then he walks into an interaction thinking he's the alpha, but inside he's a walking minefield of exposed triggers, just waiting for someone halfway observant to notice. And they do notice. Because weakness doesn't need a billboard. It shows up in your timing, in the text sent way too fast, in the over-explanation nobody asked for, in the desperate attempt to hold on to something that's clearly falling apart, in your inability to sit with silence, in your fear of losing your spot. All of this speaks for you without you even opening your mouth. And that's why the manipulable man always feels like a victim. He thinks he got outsmarted by someone too clever. He didn't. He just never locked his own back doors. He never built a filter. He never developed emotional armor. The result? Anyone can walk right in. And as long as those weak spots stay open, raw, and ready to react, it doesn't matter who you get involved with, the ending will always be the same. Only the face of the person controlling you changes. And that is exactly why the men who are hardest to play all share one definitive trait. Here is the line in the sand between a controllable man and an unshakable one. It's not IQ, it's not experience, it's not looks, it's neediness. The man who needs is always negotiating. He negotiates respect just to keep her attention. He negotiates his dignity to avoid a loss. He negotiates his silence so he doesn't look like he doesn't care. And in the middle of all this, he sells his soul for pennies, thinking he's just being passionate. What a cute little word they came up with for desperation. Now look at the flip side. The man who doesn't need chooses. He can like you, but he doesn't depend on you. He can get involved, but he doesn't lose himself. He can want it, but he won't beg on his knees for it. And that changes everything. Because manipulation requires leverage. It needs something to pull you by. And when there is no underlying need, there is no leverage. It's like trying to push a brick wall. It doesn't budge. But here's the detail nobody likes to face. Most guys walk around claiming they don't need anyone until someone starts pulling away. Then the tough guy posture vanishes, the chill vibe evaporates, and the guy becomes a world-class lawyer, defending someone else's bad behavior just so he doesn't lose access. She's just confused. She had a rough day. She's not usually like this. Sure, it's always a comfortable little script, so you don't have to admit you're terrified of losing her. And fear, my friend, always reveals neediness. And neediness always leaves the door wide open for control. The man who doesn't need doesn't chase explanations. He observes. He doesn't try to fix what feels off. He evaluates if it's even worth keeping around. He doesn't shrink himself to fit. He cuts off access. Simple, cold, and functional. And that's exactly why he can't be played. Not because he plays the game better, but because he refuses to step onto the board. And this leads straight to the golden rule that obliterates any attempt at control. And this is where almost everyone crashes and burns. This is where the game breaks. You either learn this or you spend your life being led by a leash, thinking you're just expressing yourself. Reacting on impulse isn't authenticity. It's weakness without a filter. All manipulation relies on one thing, your immediate reaction. It doesn't have to be the perfect reaction. It just has to be predictable. A late reply, a cold shoulder, a subtle shit test, and you immediately switch into response mode. You want to fix it, figure it out, adjust, explain. Congratulations, you just handed over the steering wheel. Look at this closely. The guy who reacts on impulse isn't deciding, he's obeying. Obeying his own discomfort, obeying his bruised ego, obeying the anxiety of not knowing. And a man who obeys his feelings can be steered by anyone who knows how to trigger those feelings. It's that simple. The manipulator doesn't need to convince you of anything. They just need to knock you off balance. Because the second you lose your center, you start scrambling to regain control. And in that desperate flail to reorganize yourself, you give up even more power. You talk too much, explain too much, expose too much, all in the heat of the moment. And that's how most guys elegantly sabotage themselves. They think they're being real, open, transparent. They aren't. They're being reactive. And reactivity is the native language of the controller. Now pay attention to this. The man who doesn't react on impulse creates something rare, strategic silence. He sees the bait and doesn't bite right away. He feels the sting and holds his ground. He sees the game and doesn't play. And in that gap, something shifts. He starts thinking again. And when he thinks, he chooses. And choice breaks manipulation, because manipulation only thrives in the split second before you reflect. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Holding back the impulse hurts. Biting your tongue when everything inside you is screaming to speak hurts. Leaving it on red when your ego wants to prove a point hurts. But reacting costs you more. It costs you your frame. And without your frame, you already know how this movie ends. And when you stop reacting, the inevitable happens. The game starves to death. Emotional mind games seem complicated until you realize they only work as long as you play along. No reaction, no dynamic, no control. Simple as that. And exactly why it's ignored. Look at it this way. The manipulator doesn't need to overpower you directly. They just need to keep you spinning, overthinking, double texting, trying to decode something that was never said outright. They throw a piece of the puzzle on the floor and wait for you to scramble trying to put it together. And you run to reply. You run to interpret. You run to adjust your behavior. Meanwhile, they just sit back and watch, because whoever reacts first reveals the most, and whoever reveals the most loses the high ground. The man who refuses to play breaks the loop. He sees the sketchy behavior and doesn't try to translate it. He notices the mixed signals and doesn't try to clear them up. He feels the provocation and refuses to serve himself up on a silver platter. He stops, and that stop is agonizing for someone who is used to pulling the strings. Because the game requires feedback. It needs an echo. It needs someone on the other end validating that the trick is working. Without that, the gears grind to a halt. The silence gets heavy. The lack of reaction breeds doubt. The control starts slipping through their fingers, and that's when the masks slip. The fake interest drops. The manipulation becomes glaringly obvious. The power dynamic collapses, and what looked like a mastermind plot is exposed as just unhealed toxic behavior. But here is the divider between the guys who get it and the guys who keep running in hamster wheels. Walking away from the game demands one thing that very few men have the spine to uphold: the willingness to lose. And that is exactly what keeps the majority locked in chains. Here is the ultimate truth that breaks even the most logical guy. It's not a lack of IQ. It's fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of being replaced. Fear of not being enough. And this fear doesn't announce itself with sirens. It masquerades as caring, as being invested, as let me just fix this real quick. Except it's not care. It's high-functioning panic. Now look at the mechanics. Every time you make a move just to avoid losing someone, you are already at a severe disadvantage, because your choice isn't coming from clarity. It's coming from fear. And decisions made out of fear always come with a heavy tax. You tolerate more disrespect than you should. You say more than you should. You stay long after you should have walked out the door, all to avoid the sting of a loss. But here's the cruel irony. By trying not to lose her, you lose yourself. You lose your backbone. You lose your boundaries. You lose your value. And when that happens, you've already handed over the keys. Because she notices. She might not say it, she might even play dumb. But she notices. She notices that your standards drop the second there's a risk of her walking away. She notices that you fold when you should stand firm. She notices that your boundaries are fully negotiable. Boom, open season. And you don't need to be an evil genius to exploit that. You just test it. A little distance here, a little radio silence there, and you immediately start bending over backwards. You start chasing the equilibrium that you yourself shattered. That's not connection. That's a trauma bond on a loop. And that's why the fearful man is stuck on a carousel. He might even see the game. He might try to puff his chest out. But at the first sign of a threat, he caves. He goes back to reacting, back to explaining, back to compromising, because the fear is still running the show. And as long as it is, you will always be a sitting duck for anyone who knows how to trigger it. The only way to board up that window isn't to fake being tough. It's to rip the root out entirely. And that root goes by a name that most guys avoid like the plague: detachment. This is the concept everyone claims to master, until they actually have to live it. Detachment isn't being a cold-hearted sociopath. Detachment is freedom. The problem is, most men don't actually want freedom. They want emotional control without giving up their crutch. They want to avoid getting hurt, while still being needy. They want to look like the alpha, without dropping their addiction to validation. It doesn't work. Think about it. As long as your emotional stability depends on someone else, you are at the negotiating table, always. You might look solid on a good day, but the second the foundation shakes, your frame crumbles, because you have skin in the game. The detached man doesn't play those odds, not because he's a robot who feels nothing, but because he refuses to sell his soul just to keep a feeling alive. He can care about you, but he won't bow down. He can miss you, but he won't double text in a panic. He can lose you and still wake up a whole man the next day. And that flips the script, because manipulation requires attachment. It requires you to put a premium on her presence. It requires you to be terrified of the void. Without that, they've got no leverage. It's like trying to drag a guy who isn't holding onto the rope. You just fall backward. But here is where the men separate from the boys. Detachment requires grit. Not the polished Instagram quote kind of courage, the ugly kind. The courage to accept that you might actually lose someone and still refuse to betray your own code just to keep them around. And most guys can't stomach that, because they'd rather have an anxiety-ridden presence than a dignified absence. They'd rather live in a toxic loop than sit alone in the quiet. They'd rather make excuses for trash behavior than accept that the ride is over. And so, they stay controllable. The man who lives in detachment doesn't need to hand out a syllabus. His frame alone kills the game. He doesn't negotiate with inconsistency. He doesn't try to resurrect dead ends. He doesn't shrink to fit. He observes, and he decides. And when you hit that echelon, everything flips. He stops being a target, because a man who can't be dragged, can't be manipulated. There is a quiet moment when the tectonic plates shift. No trumpets, no cinematic climax. It just clicks. The guy who used to react now watches. The guy who used to chase now evaluates. The guy who used to cling now filters, and that drops him completely off the radar. Look at the mechanics. Manipulation doesn't survive in a vacuum. It hunts for a host. It looks for someone who will hit the ball back, engage in the drama, validate the bullshit. And when you stop giving them that, you simply stop being an appetizing meal for that kind of parasite. It's not that you won the game, you left the casino, and that stings worse than any comeback you could have texted, because a puppeteer loses their mind when they pull the string, and there's no string left to pull. They panic when silence doesn't trigger a meltdown. They short-circuit when a shit test bounces off armor. And this is where guys get confused. They think the other person lost interest. No, they lost leverage. And without leverage, the game is dead. The man who refuses to be a target has absolutely nothing to prove. He doesn't step into the emotional octagon. He doesn't flex his resume to show his worth. He doesn't over-explain to be understood. He simply leaves zero airspace for that kind of clown show, and that fundamentally changes how he gets treated, because people who test boundaries stop testing. People who provoke lose their ammo. People who manipulate pack up and leave fast, not out of sudden magical respect, but because the ROI is zero. But here's the pillar that very few can carry. You only stop being a target when you stop seeking validation. Because as long as you want to be picked, you are volunteering to be judged, and a man who accepts being judged can always be manipulated. The man who breaks out of the matrix changes the rules entirely. He no longer cares about being accepted. He's deciding if you are worth accepting. And that, my friend, flips the board upside down. And when you reach that altitude, you're no longer playing. You mutate into something else entirely. You become the kind of man who cannot be steered. In the end, there is no magic pill, no covert hypnosis, no pickup artist hack that makes you immune to mind games. It comes down to structure. The unshakable man isn't the one who feels absolutely nothing. He's the one who refuses to sell out when he does feel something. He sees the trap, but doesn't step on the wire. He feels the gut punch, but doesn't lash out. He understands the psychological warfare, but refuses to enlist. And that changes everything. Look at the dichotomy. The controllable man is always in preservation mode, trying to preserve the vibe, preserve the connection, preserve his status. He's constantly tweaking his behavior so he doesn't lose his spot. The unshakable man doesn't do that. He doesn't preserve, he permits. If she brings peace, she stays. If she brings chaos, she walks. If she's unstable, access is revoked. No theatrical arguments, no 10-paragraph texts, no trying to act as her therapist, and that shatters any illusion of control, because a manipulator relies on a victim who desperately wants to stick around. They need you deeply invested. They need you terrified of the exit door. Take that away, and the whole house of cards caves in. And that is the brutal dividing line. The manipulable man spends his life reacting to the whims of others. The unshakable man sets his own standard and lets everyone else either step up to it or see themselves out. Simple and heavy. But it comes with an admission price most men refuse to pay. Absolute accountability, no victim mindset, no blaming the crazy ex, no comforting narratives, because deep down it was always this. You weren't manipulated because someone else was an evil genius. You were manipulated because you lacked sovereignty over your own mind. And when you fix that, everything changes. The game is over before the referee even blows the whistle. The lethal closing. At the end of the day, it's not about the other person. It never was. It's not about the puppet master. It's about the puppet who dances. As long as you react without a filter, someone will exploit it. As long as you reek of neediness, someone will smell it. As long as you are terrified of losing, someone will test you. Simple, raw, functional. The man who conquers himself doesn't need to flex his muscles. He doesn't get into shouting matches. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't make a scene. He simply cannot be controlled. And that is enough to dismantle any game on the planet. Burn this into your skull. A man who does not rule himself will always end up taking orders from someone else. Comment below, I am not controllable.